What is going on, people? My name is Eric Piccioni. I am documenting my journey to financial freedom. Today's video is my experience being 1 year into the vending machine industry or vending machine business, and my full transparent thoughts on everything that I think about it, how I would do it if I was starting over, or just general advice for anyone else looking into the industry as a whole. So firstly, the reason why I wanted to get into the vending machine industry is because the returns on investment and the recurring cash flow was something that I had never seen before. A lot of my past experience prior to was like Amazon FBA, blogging, YouTube, digital commerce style, e-commerce, basic things like that you typically see or hear. And I figured, if it's a business that I can get up and running, I can get some recurring revenue coming in, and I can use that to then deploy in other ways. And what I've learned is that is 500% true. I have been very fortunate to be in the position that I'm in. We're earning pretty good money right now as it is, because the vending machines that we have that are live are making on average anywhere between $750 and $1,000 a month. And we have a couple of them now. Not really in a place where we want to keep expanding, and I'll cover that in a second. But I mean, it's been a great business. There's a lot of really good things that have come from it, and I would definitely recommend this business for most people that are going to be in a permanent location for a couple of years and are going to want to create some level of income for wherever they live. It's not ideal if you're remote. If you're going to be, traveling all over the country or all over the world, just not feasible. Maybe it is, for someone that wants to build a team and can have someone in like multiple states. There are companies that do that, where they have a big corporation, they find locations, and then they find people who can fill the machines. But I think, like, logistically for me, I wanted to keep it as simple as possible. Also keep the expenses relatively low, and it's tough to do that when you've only got a couple locations. If you do expand to a certain point where you have, hundreds of locations, it makes more sense and you have more capital to do that. But my main experience is, I guess the advantages of it, it's a recurring revenue that is very consistent, which I love. The expenses themselves are very low. There's not a lot of issues that you'll run into with the expenses. Like if you have to do a repair, most of the repairs that I've done are like less than $100. And what's really nice is that you can move the machines. So it's not like a property where it's stuck there forever. You can move them. If the machines aren't performing well, you can just simply get someone or do it yourself, put them into a trailer and just move them somewhere to a better performing location. I've done that, and it's a great way to increase your revenues overall. So that's great. Those are all really good positives. Obviously, it's fun to go collect the cash because you get to see all the money that's coming out of it. And it's like, oh, this is really exciting. And you make a couple $100, maybe a couple $1,000 a week, which is really cool. And if you really go and go all in on this and give it a serious go, like, you can definitely live a pretty quality lifestyle, because it takes maybe a couple hours a week to manage. I have like 5 locations right now. Each one, on the low end, one of my worst locations is like $200, $300 a month. And some of mine are like $1,300, $1,500 a month. And it takes me maybe 4 hours. Well, let me say 10 hours a month, because there's some locations that I go like once, maybe twice a month. Some that I go almost every week or 2 weeks. I've tried to cut it down as much as possible, so I go every 2 weeks. So I spend like 10 hours a month, and I make, 20 some hundred. What is that? 2,500-ish. Nothing crazy, right? And when I say locations, I kind of bundle everything together, because I have one facility that's across the street from the other, but that's neither here nor there. The really cool thing that I'm, thankful for is that it is scalable. It's very scalable. I had one location that I started with, and then they recommended me to some other facility across the street, and just like that, I got 2 locations. And same thing has happened with multiple locations that I've tried in the past, where they have one facility that we want to test it out at, and if it works well, then we go to others. In theory, I could have pulled the trigger and gotten 30 machines or 30 locations locked in, but that comes into the disadvantages. So in a nutshell, that's like why I like the business. I guess one other thing is that it's simple. It's very simple to build and operate. You can have maybe one employee that could run the whole thing. If you don't want to do it all yourself, obviously you need a little bit of money to start hiring for help, but you can do that for $20 an hour, and they do it a couple hours a week. It's not that bad. You can get family involved, and that's a good business to do. It's just you need to work with people that you do trust. Everything's remote, which is really helpful, so you can track sales. Super simple to run the business because you can just order everything from Costco or Sam's, have it delivered to the house, and then you take that and just go install it on the machine the next day or whatever. And it keeps it simple because I rarely go to Sam's to buy product. I usually just have everything delivered, and I just pay them a delivery fee. It works great, and I can keep track of how sales are doing remotely. So, it's been exactly what I wanted it to be, and maybe a little bit more. But the downsides is really the part that I would advise others to pay attention to if you are starting to get into this business. Again, super reliable revenue stream. I think the challenge is it is fairly seasonal, so you'll see a drop in revenue coming into the winter months, not by a ton. I probably saw maybe a 10% reduction in revenue, not a big deal. I think the other part of it is that it's just the general theme around vending. Everyone's trying to get rich quick with this. So they'll say, buy my course for this material, and they don't really help you get into good locations. I think that the biggest thing with vending is the locations, and you need to work to find those. And it can be challenging if you don't want to do any cold calling or any outreach. If you want to drive around, that's fine, but you are going to spend a lot of time trying to find good locations. And that's the hard part of this industry, is ultimately getting into good spots. And a lot of services out there will say, hey, we'll put you into the best locations in your area. And, I've spoken with a couple people that have tried those services, and they just sort of put you into any facility that they can find. And, barbershops, Jiffy Lubes, small office buildings with 25 people. You're not going to make any money from that. And I've spoken with people that have 60 locations, and they're making $200 a month per location. That's not a way to build a business. I guess in theory, if you wanted to spend all your week just going to small penny accounts, then that's fine. But my mindset has always been focus on the bigger accounts, the 80-20 rule, and it'll work out. But in terms of the cost itself, it's not an expensive business. It's going to be about 50% of your revenue is the cost. So you're making 50% margin, which is great. I think the challenge is just logistically, because of the fact that you're doing it all yourself. And this is going to sound you can't have your cake and eat it too. It is a good business, but you will have to go to the facility maybe once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks. And just the simple fact of doing that can get a little bit annoying. Just you leaving the house. I'm a pretty big homebody, and you're probably thinking, why did you build a vending machine business? It is very hands-off, and you can build it without having to go to the facility for a long time. But my main point is I wanted a business that I could earn recurring income from, ideally digitally. Obviously this is a physical business, so it's not that big of a deal if you need to go once a week, once every 2 weeks. But just the simple fact of having to block off work, because I do work from home, thankfully, but just the simple fact of having to lose out on sales calls or whatever it is that I'm doing in my day-to-day, that does kind of eat into my potential earnings for the month, which does suck a little bit. Obviously I would love to hire someone to run it, but I can put in 10 hours a month, not that big of a deal. It's just, again, another small-ish complaint. Another thing that I think is not the most fun about vending is you're going to have repairs that will come up naturally. and I have request forms on my machines, and I'm more than happy to like go service the request. That's not an issue. I just think it's hilarious how there's the only time that people contact me. I mean, why would they contact you if they have a good experience? Like, same thing with the reviews. They only leave a bad review if you don't give them a plus experience. I mean, you're likely not going to get any contact requests or any like service requests for products that people want, because I put a QR code on my machine and I ask people what they want to order or what would they like to see more of, and nobody ever says what they want. They always say the machine's broken, or like, hey, it took my $5 bill even though it only accepts ones and it says it on the machine. So you're naturally going to have people that just will run into issues with the machine, and it's not like it's going to vend everything every single time. You are going to have some service calls. You might have to bring some change with you, refund people, just keep up with everything, which is, again, totally fine. I'm just, in my head, like, the way I see it is, for the amount of money that you could make in this business, sometimes it doesn't feel worth it, especially if you have these lower income accounts. If you make, $1,000 plus per location, those service requests are not that big of a deal, because you're like, okay, well, I'm making decent money off of this place, so it's not that big of a deal to go service it. But if you're making like $100, $150 a month, and someone's like, hey, I wanted a Dr. Pepper and it didn't give me it, I want my money back. I had to go to one facility once because this guy wanted 25 cents back because I think it jammed in the machine because someone put a penny in there, and it was like, it didn't send the penny through, so everything behind it got jammed. He didn't get his quarter back, and he like hit me up for days after that until I went to the facility and gave him one quarter back. I get it, it's like your money, but it's just funny to see how small of an issue people can make these things and blow it up really big. Like, I had no issue going and giving him a quarter, and that was fine. It's just hilarious how frequently you get hit up by these smaller accounts. They usually make the most noise, is what I've learned. And I'm not trying to like scare anyone off. It's not that big of a deal. Like, none of this is a big deal. I'm making that very clear. I'm just sharing my experience being about a year in. I mean, again, good business. It's always a trial and error. But I think that one other thing that I have noticed is, you might buy something to try it out. I'll buy it from Sam's. I might buy like, a bag of Doritos, chips to see how they will sell. And because it's a new product, people will buy it. But then shortly after they get over the fact that it's new, they like don't buy it anymore. So here you are with all of this product that you haven't sold, and you're like, well, shit, I've got to sell this somehow or get it out of the way. And eventually it just goes bad. It doesn't even go bad, but like, no one will typically buy the product if they see that it's past the expiration date. Even though it's not expired, it's like the best buy date. There's stores in my city that sell 7-month-old bags of chips for discounts, and they're still perfectly fine. But people, when they're vending, they don't notice that. I had a complaint once where there was honey buns that were 1 day past the best buy date. And it's not like they're moldy and ruined. They're just recommended sell date is then, because they're guaranteed fresh, but they'll be good for the next 8+ months. Like, they have put so many freaking chemicals in these foods that like they're going to be good forever. But she was like very disappointed, and she was like demanding a refund that day. And I wasn't at the office. I couldn't go on my computer and like send her a reimbursement. She got very mad. So, and it was like it was like $1.50, maybe like $1 transaction. And it's like, you will get your refund, just chill out. I was with my daughter at the time. And it's like, I mean, you're going to have service calls. Like, that's a given. But, yeah, just seeing myself in the third person, I can see how this is a very big like complaint video. I am complaining about the smallest things, mainly because that's just my experience. Like, at first, when I first got into this business, I was like, the same day I wanted to go and fix the problem. But as I learned over time, these problems aren't that big of a deal. It's like if someone orders a Snickers bar and it doesn't come out, you can either give them a Snickers whenever you show up, or just like reimburse them their money. But it's gonna sound very mean. You're likely gonna have people that are not the smartest. So whenever they do order something and like they pay with a $5 bill and the bill acceptor says it only accepts $1 and it doesn't give them their change back, it's like it's only configured for $1 bills. Or they order something and it gives them what they wanted, or it's like I had this one example, sorry, I'm going off on tangents. This guy wanted a drink from the drink machine. It's like $1.25, and he put in $1 and then messaged me and said, hey, I didn't get my drink. And I was like, well, did you pay for it? And he was like, I put $1 in. And I'm like, it's $1.25. So you're gonna need to put in $1.25 to get it back. So there's that. That happens, but part of the business, I guess. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you sticking with me till the end. Let me know if there's anything else I can address or questions that you might have. Happy to answer those. So thank you. God bless. Stay tuned.